Right, hello everyone. Tonight we're here to talk about Terry Melcher, obviously. Let me unplug this, I'll stop the fan. And I've done other streams where I've read out his testimony at the grand jury and Tex Watson's trial. And this just ties together everything into one stream, basically. I thought I'd do a stream like that. So, yeah, welcome to that. And I'll start pretty quickly, obviously. But yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. And sorry, there was a scheduling error as well. I updated the time that it starts a half an hour before it started again. Hope that hasn't confused anyone. So I'll give people a minute to arrive. Yeah, and I'll be doing a Substack article about this as well to as an essay tying all this together because these are all points that other podcasters made before me. Tom O'Neill mentioned in Chaos that there was a podcaster before he even wrote Chaos talking about this Terry Melcher stuff, and it's just shocking that people have known about this for years in the Manson case and nothing's been done about it legally. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll get to that. Terry Melcher, the man who gave us Kokomo. And the birds is actually what he's famous for producing. I will make this point at the end of the presentation. You'll see this. Anyway, yeah, I'll get into it straight away. Give us something to talk about. Right, this stream pulls together all the threads from my previous coverage of Terry Melcher, his testimony at both the grand jury and Charles Watson's trial, and what we know from Tom O'Neill's Chaos and other sources. We're exposing contradictions, evasions, and what they were really trying to hide. Melcher's contradictory testimony at both the Tate LaBianca and Watson trials, Bugliosi's handwritten notes and cover-up of Melcher's post-murder contact with Manson, the implications for the helter-skelter motive, and Melcher's links to Ruth Ann Moorehouse, Tex Watson, and Dean Moorehouse, and the broader effort to protect the reputations of Doris Day, the Beach Boys, and the Hollywood elites. Which, yeah, basically, if you're in my regular audience, you've seen all this before. I've done a whole stream about Dean Moorehouse and who he is, and obviously streams about both those testimonies that he gave. So, yeah, it's pretty obvious. Yeah. Melcher's perjury, 3 lies under oath in total. Terry Melcher repeatedly denied seeing Charles Manson after May 1969 to the grand jury in December 1969. He said, after the last visit that you made to Spun Ranch in 1969, did you see Mr. Manson again? And he said, no, I didn't. No, the Watson trial in August 1971, he said, did you ever see Manson after that, May 1969? And he said, no, I didn't. But Bugliosi's own handwritten notes from February the 11th, 1970, say otherwise. What Bugliosi hid, DeCarlo's statement. Bugliosi's notes of a 1970 interview with Danny DeCarlo, Straight Satan's member and prosecution witness, reveal Melcher visited the family 3 times after the murders. The first visit, DeCarlo heard family members say, Terry's coming, and Melcher arrived alone in a metro truck and stayed for 3 to 4 hours. In the second visit, a few days later, Melcher returned in the same truck and DeCarlo recognized him again. And the third visit was mid-September 1969, and DeCarlo saw Melcher at the bottom of Gola Wash with Gypsy and Brenda. Melcher sat in a car with them. Manson arrived and took over the wheel and drove off with Melcher and Brenda to Ridgecrest. So that's after they've run to the desert even. Danny DeCarlo says he still saw Melcher meeting up with Manson. DeCarlo never interacted with Melcher directly, but was certain it was him each time. And he's a very distinctive looking bloke. You couldn't really mistake him for anyone else, could you? Bugliosi crossed this out in his notes, but the original writing remained legible. And Bugliosi never disclosed this to the defense. And why it matters in the Manson case, according to Bugliosi's notes, Terry Melcher was seen by Danny DeCarlo with Manson and family members at the bottom of Gola Wash. This sighting was after the murder, suggesting Melcher knowingly met with fugitives in hiding. It places Melcher deep inside the family territory, contradicting his denials under oath. So yeah, that's his first major perjury. Excuse me, clear my throat, I'll mute the mic a sec. There you go. But yeah, he denies seeing Manson after the, the first date, but he clearly did. The first 2 were at Spahn Ranch, still after the murders. And he obviously denied that. And that is, yeah. He did Valium intravenously. Off topic, yeah, but well. That must have been nice. Yeah. They gave that to Tex when they were moving him on the planes, probably. Right, I'll move on to the next part of this anyway. So what did he do next? Right, well, he crossed out all references to Melcher in his notes. He never asked DeCarlo about Melcher on the stand. I've done a stream covering DeCarlo's testimony as well. He definitely never asked him about Melcher on the stand. Never turned over the notes to the defense, a likely Brady violation, and he allowed Melcher to continue perjuring himself. The Fitzgerald reaction when shown the notes. He was Patricia Krenwinkel's solicitor. This is Vince Bugliosi's handwriting. I never saw this before. He accused Bugliosi of writing a scripted narrative and coaching witnesses. Yeah, and there's another woman in Helter Skelter who I don't mention who was a reporter at the time who was watching the court case, and she felt that Bugliosi and Melcher had created a scripted narrative as well. That is in chaos. Like I say, I recommend reading it. Yeah, that's it. When he didn't want to admit why he was going out there to spawn, and he completely denied really knowing him and ever recording him and all this, didn't he? We get to that in the next. Why the perjury matters. The helter skelter theory hinges on Manson wanting to scare Melcher, but if Melcher kept visiting Manson after the murders, he wasn't scared at all. This demolishes the official motive. So, what's the alternative? Was Melcher protecting criminal activity, or was Bugliosi shielding Hollywood's elite? And did the family function more like a gang or a trafficking ring? Yes, and the second lie under oath he makes, he actually did record Manson. John Parks, the Beach Boys tour manager, told Tom O'Neill, Terry recorded him while we were on a fairly long tour. Melcher denied this under oath. He said he never recorded Manson and wasn't impressed. Melcher claims he only auditioned Manson twice, May 1969. He was not impressed and he never recorded him. He gave the family $50 because they looked hungry. Yet others, including Jakobson and various family members, implied Manson believed Melcher had promised a deal. This proves another clear act of perjury, more suppression by Bugliosi, and a possible effort to hide deeper ties between Melcher and Manson. He constantly denied this. It's always been implied that Melcher did not record Manson because he wasn't that good. So why lie? What was he really hiding? And Melcher's obsession didn't go unnoticed. Because Rudy Altobelli, the Cielo Drive landlord, told Tom O'Neill Melcher was the instigator of the Manson connection and described him as trouble, claimed Melcher was stalking Manson, said stay away from Terry, believed Melcher wanted credit for discovering Manson, but bailed when it got dark. And from chaos, Altobelli said Melcher thought he had found Jesus Christ and became obsessed. He described Melcher as being emotionally invested in Manson to the point of following him around and hoping to shape him into a star. Once Melcher realized how dark it all was, he panicked and backed out, but still tried to protect himself. And yeah, I wonder if Altobelli saying that to Tom O'Neill about stay away from Terry was he worried about what Terry knew about him that he might tell him? Because yeah, there's a lot of that in chaos. So when we get onto the Greg Jakobson thing, I'll show you what I think about what Greg Jakobson says as well. Because it looks like these guys are all throwing Terry Melcher totally under the bus and trying to downplay their own role in all this. Yeah, yeah, and Angela Lansbury as well. I've done a stream about her daughter and Charles Manson as well. Yeah, there's a lot of Hollywood connections to this case. Yes, and then we get to what he says about Tex Watson as well. So there's more lies. So at the grand jury, they call him, they're showing him pictures, and they show him the picture of Charles Watson, and he says, I don't recall whether or not I met him. I've seen him at Wilson's house in the summer of 1968, but he denies either Manson or Watson visited his home at the grand jury. But the 1971 Watson trial, he says, Watson was a friend of Wilson's and Jakobson's. I saw him at my house about 6 times. Cielo Drive, this is when he lived at Cielo Drive. I'm not sure if he ever stayed over. Jakobson was house sitting for a time, though. And he seemed very pleasant and friendly. Melcher significantly expanded on his relationship with Watson in 1971, admitting to multiple visits and describing him as friendly, despite previously implying he barely knew him. So it's not quite perjury because he does admit that he saw him once, but it's perjury by omission, isn't it? Because he doesn't say that he then later saw him at his house. So he kind of perjures himself there, doesn't he? Yeah. Oh yes, and the Jaguar thing here as well. This is never brought up at the grand jury, but at Tex Watson's trial, Melcher admitted he owned a Jaguar in 1968, which he loaned to Dean Moorehouse so he could attend court, and Tex Watson went along for the ride. This placed Melcher in close association with Dean Moorehouse, later a convicted statutory rapist, and at the time in 1968 an LSD guru, and Ruth Ann Moorehouse, Dean's 14-year-old daughter, left behind with the Manson family and the Golden Penetrators, though Ruth is never mentioned in court. This entire episode was only brought up at Watson's trial, not before the grand jury during the original Tate LaBianca case. Yeah, so that's another big thing, obviously, that they're trying to cover up here, isn't it? And it's interesting that this never gets brought up before the grand jury either. That's it. Yeah, well, he's supposed to have stayed at Cielo at some point in the guest house, isn't he? But the date has now come into question because there is a point where he gets sent to jail. So it has to be before he got sent to jail. But yeah, Tex was actually at Dennis Wilson's house before the Manson family got there as well. That's the other thing you've got to remember. Charles Watson knew more about the workings of Hollywood than the Manson family possibly. He got deeper in there because he seemed quite polite and friendly compared to Manson, who was sketchy and unpredictable. Do you know what I mean? He probably penetrated further into these things. Excuse me. And now looking at the what I've seen of the situation here, I wonder if he was more like one of the Golden Penetrators himself. If he was involved, Tex Watson was actually involved in that whole scene. Because we've always speculated that it was some kind of weird secret underground gay pool boy mafia thing that was going on with Tex, but he also was clearly into women as well. So was he like the fourth Golden Penetrator or whatever? And he was their connection to Manson because he was easier to deal with than Manson himself, wasn't he? And the Golden Penetrators, who were they? The Golden Penetrators were an alleged inner circle of men in Melcher's social world, Beach Boys record producers and hangers-on who shared drugs, underage girls and parties, an inner circle of men tied to the family. So it's Terry Melcher, Dennis Wilson and Greg Jakobson called themselves the Golden Penetrators. Like I say, I've done a whole stream talking about them and who they were and reading out the segment from Jeff Gwynn's book, which basically gives you the best description of what they were. But they shared LSD and sex parties and underage girls, including Ruth Ann Moorehouse. And Dean Moorehouse introduced his daughter to this circle at age 14, which she would have been like 15 or 16, because, when she first meets the Manson family, she's 14, but she ends up 16 by the time she's been interviewed in that police interview that you hear. This is what Greg Jakobson said to O'Neill. Greg Jakobson told Tom O'Neill, I think Terry was having a sexual relationship with Ruth Ann. She was really young, like 15 or 16. He also confirmed Melcher knew Manson well. Melcher was the one who brought Manson into their scene. Both Chaos and Jeff Gwynn's book, Manson, support Jacob's version that Melcher was the one who brought Manson in. But this raises questions. Dennis Wilson was the one who first met Manson, not Melcher. Wilson and Jakobson were close friends, and Manson was living with Wilson before ever meeting Melcher. So why does Jakobson shift the blame? It may have been a subtle deflection, letting Melcher take the fall for what was likely a joint introduction between Dennis and Greg. In hindsight, Jakobson's framing seems self-protective, not fully honest. And Terry Melcher always implied that Jakobson was the talent scout who was bringing people to him. Do you know what I mean? So when Jakobson is saying all this about, Melcher was the instigator, and Altobelli is saying it as well, it was actually Jakobson who was the talent scout and Altobelli who was the agent. So it was probably them that had the interest in Manson and telling Melcher what to think. That was their job, wasn't it? So I think they're sort of protecting themselves when they try and defer all the blame to Melcher. Not to protect Melcher, but it just sounds like they're just trying to throw Melcher under the bus. And Melcher's the one who's dead now, and Altobelli's dead. But Greg Jakobson is still alive. He is in that documentary, the Peacock documentary, and he looks nervous as hell. Watch that documentary. Yeah, he looks terrified the whole time that all this is coming out, basically. But he's protected by the statute of limitations. He can't be charged by anything, so he doesn't really need to worry. But it's got to be humiliating, hasn't it, to have this come out? Legacy management in action. Melcher wasn't just another witness. He was the son of Doris Day, a friend of the Beach Boys, and a Hollywood insider with a lot to lose. Dragging him into scandal would have tainted countless reputations, so instead, Bugliosi sanitized the story and replaced drugs, sex, and trafficking with mind control and race war. And yeah, I chose this picture of him. That's him as a child with his mother, Doris Day, to show who he was. He was like Hollywood royalty or whatever, wasn't he? And I think after all the years of looking at this, because when I was first looking at this, I thought they were trying to cover up the drug involvement of the victims at Cielo Drive. But once I found quite how many newspaper articles there were actually about that, that was, though it wasn't brought up in court, that wasn't what was covered up. They did actually throw them to the wolves in that respect. Like Joe Sebring's nephew said, they were crucified in that respect. That was actually released to the public. I think it's more likely this that is the thing you don't read about. And there's been so many books written downplaying Melcher's involvement with Manson and the fact he never recorded him. When there's more sources than just this guy in chaos saying that Melcher recorded Manson, and he recorded him more times than just once as well. There's a whole other side to this that has been played down, and it's shocking that more hasn't been done about it. But who's going to want to take responsibility for this and take action about it, really? And who has sympathy for people that did what these killers did, basically, to want to overturn anything? But it's not even about them. It's about the truth and the fact that people got away with stuff they shouldn't have got away with, and that's never been acknowledged. It's just shocking. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so many people are passing away. Oh, the Peacock documentary. Oh, it's in all the pinned comments. It's on the subreddit and in the featured thing. And if you're in, someone just posted it in the Facebook group. Actually, it's now on a UK site as well. But it's called Making Manson, and it was on Peacock, and you needed a VPN and to say you were in America to watch it. But now I think it is even on a UK site. It's called Making Manson, and it was quite recently made. And Greg Jakobson is interviewed on it, and he looks really, really nervous. I did a stream talking about it when it first came out. If you look up the new Manson documentary, Making Manson, if you just search that on the channel, you'll see my opinion of it. So there was a wish she could be a model. They were going to make her into an actress or something, yeah. And Catherine Sher recorded a record, didn't she? But I think that was actually before she met the Manson family. So that was other music industry pervs trying to pull her in, letting her record a record or whatever, yeah. Yeah, what were they doing in London? Melcher and Bergen doing in London for 4 months in late 1968. Well, there's supposed to have been a problem with the housekeeper there, isn't there? But everyone says this is the weird thing about why did he just leave this house? But he's supposed to have had a housekeeper who was living in the guest house who was a nightmare. And rather than fire her, he just left the tenancy, he just left the house. So him and Candice Bergen possibly ran away before they moved into their new house. Basically, that might be why they ran away. But that's supposed to be why he left Cielo Drive. But everyone questions why he actually left Cielo Drive. But that was the official explanation, wasn't it? I think. Yeah, yeah, I think it is on YouTube. Yeah, I think it is under her name, isn't it? Catherine Sher. Or didn't she have a stage name? I can't remember, but yeah, I know you can find the single she recorded. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, this is it, isn't it? Because um, he was the landlord, and I thought the guest house was his property. It was where he lived, as well, generally. But maybe when he was away, he rented it out. And he employ this woman, or did Melcher employ her? It depends who employed her, doesn't it? Yeah. Because yeah, you employ your own servants once you live in the house, don't you? Once you take on the tenancy, does it come with the servants or what? Yeah, who knows? But that's supposed to be the reason that Terry Melcher and Candice Bergen left. It was because of this nightmare housekeeper, and she was so bad they didn't want to have to reason with her, so they just fucked off, basically. Yeah, I think well that's like the end of the slideshow, but that just ties everything together, basically, doesn't it? About all the different lies Melcher told. So yeah, the first is the contradiction in how much he admits he knew Tex Watson between the two trials, and the fact that he lent the car to Dean Moorehouse and Tex Watson is never brought up at the grand jury, and Ruth Moorehouse is never brought up at either trial. And Ruth Morehouse actually did testify at the penalty phase, I think. I've not read what she said, but you can bet your ass they don't ask her anything about Terry Melcher, you know what I mean? Terrible. Yeah, Melcher and Bergen, both privileged children of Hollywood royalty, were so frightened of a housekeeper they'd sooner move out of a house they loved than fire her. A power couple scared of the maid, yeah. That's the thing, everyone questions it and says, what, this doesn't seem to make sense. Really. But yeah, I know he had just, I mean, because it was initially, you can find a magazine article where it says it was rented by him and another man initially. So it sounds like initially they were just using it as a party pad, you know, and it probably just got too much, and that's why he ran out on it. But there is supposed to have been a crazy woman living in the guest house. In Garrettson's testimony, he talks about how he had to clean up the guest house after a crazy woman had been living in it, and Altobelli had actually had birds in the house, caged birds, and they died because this woman had failed to look after them, and that's why he had employed Garrettson, because he was a quiet boy, didn't drink and do drugs, sort of thing. Yeah. But I wonder if that is the same woman. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, if you read or I've read out Garrettson's testimony, or if you go and read it yourself, I'm sure he says that when he moved into the guest house, he had to clear it out after this mad woman had been living in it. So maybe he was, yeah, the one that had to clean up after this woman. Yeah, it does seem strange that a guy like Terry Melcher wouldn't just have the woman evicted, doesn't it? Yeah, they would rather leave than deal with it. Yeah. Would you do that just to avoid the confrontation? Yeah, I suppose they're so rich as well, they can just go and rent another beautiful house somewhere else, can't they? They just, yeah, they don't care. Yeah, that was a quote from Chaos. Yeah, I just showed you, didn't I, on the screen? Yeah, it does seem very odd. That's meant to be the reason why they left. And then it goes to Polanski and Tate with Garrettson in the guest house. Yeah, and next week's stream is going to be good as well. I've looked into, well, if you're interested in the Jolly West stuff, you know, Doctor, yeah, Jolly on West, the MK Ultra Doctor. I'm gonna give you my theory finally on what involvement I think he might have had with this case, if any. And I won't say more than that to spoil it. But yeah, there's a because I think that a lot of people who've read Chaos think that he was reaching, trying to connect Jolly West and UCLA and all that to and the Haight Ashbury Clinic to them programming the murders to happen, basically. But I can see there's a way after the murders had happened when they were trying to conceal what had really happened, the way they might have used Jolly West, and that's what I'm going to be getting into next week. So yeah, if you like hearing about all that sort of stuff, I'll show you what I think. Yeah, but no, this was before. This was before the murders ever happened. This is why they left before it went to Sharon and Raymond. Even that's why they before you know like in '68. Yeah, so not the before he'd even met Charlie. They're saying that's why Terry Melcher and Candice Bergen left Cielo Drive before Roman and Sharon moved in. So long before Frykowski and Folger get there, and there's any reason for it to be connected to Manson. Unless he did visit Melcher there before. But he's supposed to have Altobelli admitted that Charles Manson came to the guest house while he was there and while Sharon lived there, didn't he? Oh, thank you. Yeah, you knew, yeah. Yeah, oh god, I've made so many videos now. I'm trying to summarize things a bit more generally because, yeah, I think I go into a bit too much detail sometimes for people and they miss the point. So, yeah, I'm sort of trying to summarize my stuff. And, like, for next week's stream to make sense, you need to have watched the recent Tex Watson stream I did. Oh, yes, and I've had a comment on that. Someone tells me there's a bit in the troll transcripts where someone does say he decorated a nursery. So I'm going to look that up and possibly update that. There might have been a nursery. And it's just really hard to find evidence of it. But yeah, apparently there is someone in the trial transcripts saying that he painted a nursery. So if that's true, I will update you on that as well. But yeah, for next week's stream to make sense, the rest of the Tex Watson stream, you go watch that, talking about his connections, because he was obviously connected to Terry Melcher and Dennis Wilson before Manson was, and he was a smoother, athletic type. You know, he fit in easier with the Hollywood scene, so he probably saw a lot more than Manson actually did. You know, he was allowed further in, and I think we really need to look into, you know, what Tex might have known and what they were trying to cover up about Tex. So I think they've used Manson and Susan Atkins to distract us for many years, and really those two were too crazy to have been used by anyone. Do you know what I mean? It's the others that we need to have looked at. Really, they're trying to distract us from what really happened. Yeah. I said, I don't. He didn't move into the house, did he? But he definitely visited there, because Olivia Hussey talks about having a relationship with him there. He went back to the house. He wasn't scared of the house. Yeah, and they had a panic button that linked them to the security company, didn't they? The Bel Air Patrol after the murders happened. But yeah, he wasn't scared. He knew that he was safe, didn't he? He knew that he wasn't the target, really. Because yeah, he wasn't ever the target of the murders, and what they were covering up was his involvement with the Manson family that was going to embarrass a lot of people, and the mamas and papas involvement with them as well, and the involvement with the Beach Boys. This is the kind of thing they were trying to really cover up, you know. Yeah, yeah. Would you like the sound of that? Yeah, but no, it's quite. And I've tried to write it as if I was, because I did a psychology degree. I've done. I've, you know, done it. So I'm going to write it as if I'm doing a study, as if I've done a study of the document, and show you my hypothesis, basically. Yeah, because it's a bit different to what people normally imply when they say that they MK Ultra'd anyone in this. But yeah, but this is actually so plausible. It's quite spooky how plausible it sounds when you look at it. Really, yeah. It's got to be true, innit? It rhymes, innit? Was Melcher or Felcher? Don't ask me to explain what that was. Yeah, she did move in after the murders. That's the point. Then, yeah, Olivia Hussey moved in after the murders, and Terry Melcher went up there and had an affair with her at the house after the murders. So, if Melcher was so terrified, why did he continue going up to the house and having an affair with Olivia Hussey and that? You know, it shows he wasn't scared. He knows what the real motive was and why the Manson family really did it, and that he wasn't the intended target. Yeah, yeah. Was he really jolly, and was Olivia Hussey really a hussy? Yeah, that's the thing. The key questions in this. But yeah, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like I said, the Substack is growing all the time. I'm going to be adding more articles to it all the time, obviously. And oh, you can do monthly membership now on the Buy Me a Coffee page. I've got 3 monthly supporters now. If you want to support the channel, you can give like $3 a month. Thank you if anyone decides to. Oh, it's Beckham here as well. Hello, Beckham. Hi there. Melcher hit the lottery, producing the Beach Boys' last #1 in the charts, Kokomo. Oh, yeah, that's it. I have got more slides actually. I thought this was the last slide. I've got another one. Yes, this is more for people who are older and who know all about the Beach Boys. We already know this. This is more for the benefit of people my age who don't only vaguely know about the Beach Boys. Terry Melcher is not what you've been told. So the myth is Terry Melcher was the Beach Boys' manager or producer in 1969. But in reality, Melcher had no official role with the Beach Boys that year or at any time, right? Not producing, managing, or even consulting. The band was working with Carl Wilson and Stephen Desper. Didn't collaborate again until the late 1980s, so like Kokomo. So why the myth? Melcher was socially close to Dennis Wilson. He was living at Cielo Drive. He was introduced to Manson by Dennis. He's rumored to have recorded Manson as a favor. And he's actually famous for producing acts like The Birds. So if Melcher had nothing to hide, why lie so extensively? Because that's the weird thing. Because he's so seriously entrenched in all this. People that don't know might think that he was somehow seriously involved with the Beach Boys, so he had to protect the Beach Boys or something. But he actually wasn't involved with the Beach Boys. He knew Dennis Wilson socially. They moved in the same social circles. He's actually famous for producing The Birds, and there are several other bands. There's a few famous pop acts that he produced, but The Birds is the most noticeable one. He never really was involved with the Beach Boys management. And so it is really weird. Why was his involvement so downplayed, and why was he so? What was he scared of? Because he wasn't really that involved. He could have just denied all knowledge. So he obviously got more involved than he admitted, did he? Yeah, yeah. Oh God, you talk about Kokomo. Yeah, I listened to it. The film Cocktail as well doesn't hit the same these days, does it? Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah. And also thinking about as well, right? John Phillips and Terry Melcher were on Kokomo. So if they'd just hauled Charles Manson out of prison and got him to play, they'd have had some of the Golden Penetrators. But if they'd managed to haul Dennis Wilson out the grave and get him on it as well, they'd have hauled all the Golden Penetrators out the ground to play on it. But no, yeah, Dennis Wilson. No, not Dennis Wilson. It was John Phillips, wasn't it? Yeah, John Phillips and Terry Melcher involved in the same track. Old pervert friends. Yeah, Melcher Skelcher. Yeah, that's the new title for the conspiracy. Yeah. Oh, was he a bird brain? Great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Danny DeCarlo said he remembered him coming to the ranch twice, and then they saw him out again in Death Valley. So that's crazy. That's suggesting that like right up till you know when they were on the run. So definitely when he must have known that they had committed the murders as well. He can't have not known because why were they running? It's shocking. Mm. And this was never even shown to the rest of the lawyers, which is a Brady violation apparently. And DeCarlo was never asked to say this in court, so he wasn't cross-examined on it or anything. Do you know what I mean? It was just kept in the dark. But yeah, but that means the other girls, because Danny DeCarlo says girls saw him arrive. So could they have asked the girls to testify about this? They should have investigated further, to find out. And I think that is the final slide, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. Well, this isn't the end of the stream, but that's the end of the presentation. But it tied together Melcher's contradictory testimony, Bugliosi's hidden notes, the interviews with Jakobson and Altobelli in Chaos, and the tragic case of Ruth Ann Moorehouse, because she seems to have been, what they were really trying to cover up and what got Melcher so addicted to the Manson family. Yeah, so like the video and subscribe to the channel and subscribe to the Substack, which is linked everywhere, all across my social media, on the community page of the channel and all that. But yeah, well, there's a lot to talk about there, obviously, isn't there? And I just really wanted to do one stream putting all of this together because I've talked about these different testimonies at the different places in two different streams. And I think I tacked on the stuff from Chaos to the grand jury stream, didn't I? But I just wanted to show it all in one place because it's quite startling when you see it. It's really the first time he did pretends he hardly met Watson. Then at Watson's trial, he has to say, "Oh yeah, I met him 5 or 6 times, and he seemed nice." And I lent Dean Moorehouse my car, and I know he went along as well. So he just completely. But so technically, it isn't perjury because he doesn't totally deny knowing him, does he? But it's perjury by omission because he doesn't talk about the rest of it. And he implies at both trials he never recorded Manson when people are saying that he did record Manson. And Altobelli said that he was obsessed with him and followed him around. And Greg Jakobson in Chaos as well tries to say he never believed Charlie and that he thought there was too much bullshit. But I have listened in Greg Jakobson's interview tape. The recording isn't too bad. You can actually hear it quite well. And it's Greg Jakobson talking to Bugliosi. And he sounds pretty convinced by the Helter Skelter stuff. He can recall it in great detail. If he wasn't convinced, then he's putting on a very good show. You know what I mean? Or if that's true that he said in Chaos that he didn't believe it, it shows it was scripted and he recorded this for Bugliosi. And Greg Jakobson actually testified at the trial. I haven't read what Greg Jakobson said at the trial. But I imagine, yeah, it's just repeating whatever's on this tape with Bugliosi. But it's very interesting, and the tape seems to stop and start again as well. So yeah, like I said, I've done a stream of that, what Greg Jacobson said. Have a look at that. And the Dean Moorehouse stream is important to understand who Dean Moorehouse was and how that all connects back to Melcher. And yeah, it's just really shocking that nothing has been done about this. But who could do what? at this point. Do you know what I mean? So it was just like an insane situation. Most of the men are dead, and anyone who is still alive, the statute of limitations protects them. But uh, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? What can be done? Who do you write to about this? Candice Bergen. Yeah, I don't really know what she said. What she said about it in great detail. I think she has made some statements about it. I'll have to look into that. What she actually said. I know in the Manson file, Nicholas Schreck talks to Brian Wilson's wife. He actually got to interview Brian Wilson's wife, and she says that Brian Wilson was never afraid. The Beach Boys were never actually afraid that they were targets. And she said she never felt afraid of Charles Manson, even after the murders and all the stuff about it being about Melcher. Brian Wilson never had any reason to be afraid. Never felt afraid, He wasn't threatening all of the Beach Boys. And part of what Manson was supposed to be pissed off about was he gave them a song and they changed the lyrics to the song. And that was what he was more pissed off about than any financial thing. I think he didn't like the fact that the lyrics of the song got changed. But he didn't understand how the music industry works. Because if you sell a song to someone, they can do whatever they want with it. They can just take the chord sequence and completely change the song and the lyrics if they want. And that was not his motive as well. Don't put that out of your head that any of this was to do with the motive for the murders. Yes, Manson might have been pissed off with Terry Melcher, but that was not the motive for the murders. Yeah, yeah, that's it, isn't it? They won. Yeah, what can you do? What are you gonna do? Who do you complain to about this, really? And would mean the American legal system or the California legal system at least when they're admitting that they allowed this cover up to happen to protect a rich white guy in Hollywood when a bunch of rich white people got murdered. And to hell with whatever the truth of the matter really was. And it's shocking. And people got away with crimes that they shouldn't have. You know, Terry Melcher should have been questioned about his relationship with these girls. And he just denied everything and was allowed to. Was probably never even arrested and harshly questioned by anyone, was he? Did he just get to talk to? Did he just have to talk to Bugliosi? Did the police ever question him about his relationship with Ruth Ann Moorehouse? Because Bugliosi was a lawyer, wasn't he? Not a police officer. These guys just got away with everything, didn't they? They were totally protected by their money. Yeah, that's the song. Oh God, sorry, got to scroll back up to find the comment. Yeah, no, but he did give it to them. But they changed the song to, didn't they change the title to "Cease to Exist"? But it was meant to be "Never Learn Not to Love," and he didn't like it, and they implied they changed the lyrics slightly to make it sound like it was a song written between a man and a woman, sort of thing, to his girlfriend. And Manson didn't like that, but that was not enough to inspire the TLB murders. That was not what happened. Yeah, well, this is the other thing. I've never heard what Melcher thought about Bobby, because Bobby was a musician who had bands. We know about Orchestra, the one that he was playing with in Lucifer Rising that you see, but him and Manson are supposed to have started a band at one point as well. And I wonder what Melcher thought of Bobby and if he ever auditioned Bobby. But yeah, I've never heard anything about that, or if any other record companies ever auditioned Bobby before he became a a murderer. Yeah, yeah. No, no, it's a Manson song in it, but they changed the lyrics slightly, basically, and I don't know how much they changed the chords that Manson wrote or whatever as well. Yeah, Phil Spector. Yeah, well, I was looking into this. I didn't add it to the slideshow, but yeah, for music nerds, they're into this because if you watch the Golden Penetrators stream, I was quite sort of upset when it finally hit me that Terry Melcher was one of the people involved with the Manson family, because he was involved with recording Mr. Tambourine Man, which is arguably the start of folk rock, the jingle jangle guitar, that technique sort of thing. And so it really bothered me, because I always thought that folk music was kind of safe, and it was like rock musicians that had all the dark perversion. And it really made me realize that no, actually folk rock wasn't safe either. It was Charles Manson, Terry Melcher, John Phillips. It was bad in all the all of the music industry. Nowhere was safe. And it really got to me, basically. Sorry. And yeah, so but I was looking into Melcher, obviously, and his sound technique. He basically layered up Roger McGuinn's guitar multi times. He multi-tracked it and played it all together, and that's very similar to Phil Spector. So I thought, well, didn't fucking he just rip off Phil Spector? Why is he claiming? Why is he recognised as some kind of genius? But actually, no, he did make it more friendly to folk rock, to folk music, to recording acoustic guitars. He made some changes, but that's his major uh, claim to fame. But what he did was very similar to Phil Spector and his Wall of Sound, the way he recorded the musicians for the Wall of Sound in all his famous songs. The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore, Unchained Melody, and all that. Basically, he ripped off Phil Spector, but changed it for recording acoustic instruments. Yeah. Oh no, I haven't seen that. Is it on BBC? Yeah, I'll be on iPlayer, won't it? I'll have a look at that. And that Hell's Angels series is still showing on Channel 4. If you're in the UK, you can find it on 4AD, just called Secrets of the Hell's Angels. And if you're not in the UK, you should better use a VPN to look at the UK site, and it's on the 4 on demand. That's an interesting thing as well. Yeah, yeah. Full space. It does look like a wig customer, doesn't he? I wonder if he ever bought any wigs off Tex back in the 60s. Sorry, just get the chat now. Bob Dylan. Yeah, Melcher did produce Bob Dylan as well. But I went to one of these shows because my dad absolutely loves the folk rock, and I like folk rock as well. I can probably love it as much as my dad, because I wasn't there when it came out, but I can appreciate it. And we went to an evening with Roger McGuinn, a concert. It's in quite a small hall, and it's one of these. An evening with means they talk to you in between the songs, basically. And he came out, and he was just playing a 12-string acoustic guitar, sat there, and he was talking, and he said, just before he played the Ballad of the Easy Rider, he said, "Oh, Bob Dylan had recorded this song, but someone thought that he sounded flat." And so they gave it to. No, that was it. No, this is Mr. Tambourine Man. Sorry, no, I'm wrong. Not the Ballad of the Easy Rider. No, this is Mr. Tambourine Man. Fucked up the story. Bob Dylan recorded Mr. Tambourine Man, and he said, but someone said that, and it's his song. And someone said that Bob Dylan sounded flat, and he obviously meant Terry Melcher. He didn't say Melcher, but he said Melcher said he sounded flat, so he made us record it. And this is how like the folk rock sound got invented, because they made Roger McGuinn record Mr. Tambourine Man. And yeah, that's the story of Mr. Tambourine Man, because Terry Melcher thought Bob Dylan sounded flat singing, and that's like the beauty of Bob Dylan. He can sing however the fuck he wants. It doesn't matter if Bob Dylan's flat. But Terry Melcher didn't recognise that, and he made Roger McGuinn re-record the song. And what he did with the guitars became the sound of folk rock, the jingle jangly sound. But I think blues guitarists already used it. And Richard Thompson, we've got our own folk music in the UK. Richard Thompson had weird techniques. I think he routed the guitar through the organ amplifier or something crazy like that. So there was a lot going on in folk rock other than uh, just what Roger McGuinn did. The Roger McGuinn is significant, and he was actually playing. He's the only one of the Birds who was actually playing as well, they reckon. The rest of them were wrecking crew musicians, because they weren't qualified enough for Terry Melcher on the albums. But the rest of the Birds were pissed off about that, because they reckoned they were good enough to play. It was just they didn't have the right certificates to please Terry Melcher, and they were playing on stage and that, yeah. Yeah, that's it, yeah. Did you say that before me? I wasn't looking at the chat. Yeah, but that's what they say, yeah. Roger McGuinn's the only one who's supposed to have been good enough, but the rest of the Birds were apparently pissed off about that. I didn't realise that. They left Melcher after this. I didn't realise this it was when I was researching the Golden Penetrator stream. the rest of the birds weren't happy with that, and they actually were playing live, and they were good enough. And it was about whether you'd gone to college or not. You know what I mean? At the time, they were looking for that level of qualification. You had to be like a virtuoso or whatever. But the British invasion musicians would have fucking put all that to sleep, because none of the Rolling Stones or Eric Clapton or anyone went to music school. They went to art school, and the Pink Floyd went to architecture school or whatever. Yeah. And Mick Jagger studied business management, not music. None of them fucking studied music. I want to do a stream about this because it's so insane. All our virtuoso musicians, not one of them studied fucking music. They all studied something else. It's really bizarre. Or even is recorded as having music lessons and having done the grades. It's like, so where did all this come from? You can see why there's conspiracy theories about it. But it is possible to teach yourself and to have not done all the exams but still have the knowledge. So it's not that fucking far fetched. But it is weird. None of these people were actually people with music degrees. Yeah, well, the 60s music. Well, I kind of feel like we ended up getting cheated out of really good music. Probably by the time the 80s started, from the end of the 70s, because the people that were good at music were too intelligent, and who had got music education or whatever, were too intelligent and had too much to say and were too difficult to manipulate. And they had their own ideas and they wanted their own creative control, and they fought back. So I think later they started employing people that didn't have any music training, people they could just push around. That's what they wanted, and they just use session musicians for bands. And that's how it's done now. And that's why the music gradually got crapper and more commercial, you know, and just crowd pleasing, middle of the road, beige stuff. But the music industry is having to fight back now because people are just going independent, aren't they? So they're having to show that they are promoting new artists that are playing instruments and writing songs and that. So I think some good is coming out of it. But we've got a number one in the UK at this moment that's a fictitious band. So I think I'm assuming it's an AI voice even. The voice isn't even real. It's a K-pop band. I don't know if you've heard about this, right? But this is the number one song in the UK at the moment. Isn't even a real band. And there was a song in the 60s that, oh, sugar, oh, honey, honey, you know that song, you're my candy girl. That was an animated band. You never saw the band, but there was actually a band and there were people singing. But this new one that is the AI thing, is that an AI voice even? Is that no real people behind that at all? And kids are getting really into it. And there's a Netflix film, and they're buying into it. And it's actually number one. People are playing it so much that it's number one. That's interesting. He was inspired after seeing George Harrison playing his 12-string Rickenbacker in the movie A Hard Day's Night. But he must have had a 12-string before, surely. Yeah, but he saw the Rickenbacker, yeah, because he's famous. I think that's what he was playing. Yeah, he walked out onto stage with it. Yeah, the Rickenbacker. Yeah, it was funny. He walked onto the stage holding it right up with his arm right out like that. It was really funny how he walked down and then he sat playing it as well, and then he sat down and on the stool. Yeah, yeah. I've seen other YouTubes about that, and I mean, I've got an AI song, haven't I? Yeah. Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong comment. It's in YouTube about the AI song. Yeah, well, it was on the news last night. I knew nothing about it because I don't pay attention to what's in the charts. But it's the number one song in our charts at the moment, apparently. And there's no, as far as I can tell, the voice is AI, everything's AI. But there's a whole universe created. There's like a film for this character, and it's a K-pop thing. It's come out of Korea, and so that means they don't, because it's K-pop is known for being really exploitative and making the artists anorexic and making them dance till they die and all this sort of shit, isn't it? So now they go, oh, well, we don't need real people now. We'll just use AI, and the kids are loving it. Apparently, it's got to number one. It's going to be the soundtrack of their summer. The AI song, brilliant. Yeah, that's it. That sugar song. I can't remember what they were called, but that was a concept, wasn't it? And you never saw the actual band. There was just an animated video. The same people that initially produced the Monkeys. And I know, yeah, people shout at me and say, "Oh, the Monkeys were playing in the end." I know they did play in the end, yeah, but the Monkeys initially weren't playing their instruments, were they? And they got loads of flack for it, so they tried to do a band that was just animated figures. But at the time, they didn't have AI voices and that, so there really was actually a band playing somewhere. They said he was influenced by Coltrane as well. Yeah, and he talked about when he wrote Ballad of the Easy Rider. That's why I got it mixed up with the Mr. Tambourine Man thing. But yeah, he talked about being told, and he didn't say Melcher, but it must be Terry Melcher. Obviously, it was Terry Melcher he was talking about. He said the artist had already recorded this song, but someone said he was singing flat, so they wanted us to record it instead, and it launched their career and arguably the sound of folk rock. But there's other folk rock influences as well. So it hasn't completely killed all music for me, but music is kind of dead to me now after finding out. Yeah, no genre is safe. Yeah, they were, by the end they did learn, didn't they, to play the instruments? Yeah, they didn't like it. The Archies, that's the one. Yes, they were called the Archies, but they were just comic figures, weren't they? You never saw the actual band. In fact, I've never looked. I bet if you look, you can find out photos of the actual musicians, but I've never seen pictures of what the real musicians look like or anything. Yeah, but at least there was someone real behind it, recorded once. Because thing is, as well, they can get you there because you can be recorded as a session singer, and you recorded, and they can play your voice as many times as they want on an advert or on the radio or whatever, and you never get any money if you're only played as a session singer, unless you're paid a royalty for your performance. So like they could get you that way. But I think yeah, I've got to look into it to be absolutely certain. But I'm pretty sure that the AI song that's on the no, it's number one at the moment. There isn't even a voice anywhere. There's no person actually saying it. It's completely made by AI. And it sounded that way. But you can make someone's voice sound fake with special effects, a lot of reverb over it or whatever. So right, well, I'm rambling on now. I've gone off the subject, haven't I? But I wanted to just get that all out pretty quickly anyway, because for audience retention, people who are watching it on playback, they'll see the presentation. And I'll cut away before we start rambling about AI music and that. But yeah, I am talking about how studying all this has affected me, because I used to really enjoy music, but it's hard after realizing what these are like, what these men were all like. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll end this now and I'll do a after show because yeah, obviously I'm rambling now. And yeah, tune in next week for the Jolly West, my theory about what Jolly West may have actually done for the Manson trial. Yes, and thank you all for coming. And I'll see you for the after show if you're coming, or next week if not. Right, I'll see you in a bit or next week.